Vedatri Maharshi sees that science, when it searches, it makes the searches from outside. It doesn't focus inside. But the metaphysicians, as I said, they focus inside, they forget the outside. From inside they come out. The scientists somehow, they search outside, they forget the inside. But Vedatri Maharshi says, he has a balanced position where he is a metaphysician and also a scientist. He can speak to the scientists at the equal level the way he can speak to the metaphysicians. That's why he is a visionary who has the foot set on both metaphysics and physics. So that's how we see a great model in Vedatri's ideas. Now you see, and as Professor Vijay Arora was sending a message, the message is very clear and loud. There is, and I coin a name, Vedatrian Revolution. I coin a name, Vedatrian Revolution. What is this revolution? This revolution is the paradigm shift from matter to space. What the scientists do, they confine on matter and think that is primary. Even Einstein, for example, left away matter. In his search deeper into matter, he came into what is called as field, and he takes field as the fundamental reality. And what is and why it takes field as the fundamental reality? You see, out of the interaction between fields, we come across what we call the subatomic particles. Particles are nothing but the interaction between fields. So this is the Western model. But see, in Vedatri Maharshi, space is fundamental. Space is primary. Space is primordial. And from this space, as Professor Ramanujan was pointing out, because of the self-compressive pressure force in the primordial space, therein was born a small whirl, like a sort of a tornado that you can imagine, and that in a very infinitesimal space turned up into what is called as particle, and what we call as Vedans. Okay, and from that fundamental particle and the friction of the fundamental particle with the space, the primordial space, there were secondary waves that resulted in, and you see the fundamental primary particle in combination at various levels gave rise to atoms, molecules, and they in proper combinations gave rise to everything that we can see out there in this cosmos. And the secondary waves, they in combination brought in various elements like heat, volume, okay, light, and even mind in animate beings, the human beings or even the animal world. So this is what Vedatrian model in a brief sketch. But what I have got to do here is something like this. I have certain things which I wish to speak to you, and you can find it if it is published. In the Western model, we require two theories of evolution. One is the evolution of the physical universe. The second is the evolution of the species. Say for example, the Darwin's evolution of species. The other is the evolution of the physical universe. But in the Vedatrian model, we don't require two theses. We don't require two models. We require only one model, that is Vedatrian model, where it can explain the evolution of the physical world, including the animate matter, because of the secondary waves that are So that is more important. So we don't require two models. Vedatrian model is self-sufficient to explain both the physical and the animate and the inanimate. So that's how a single model can explain all the facets out there in this universe. Number one. Number two is In the Vedantic model, the primordial space, as it says, it is charged with energy and consciousness. Now you see, what I see is, energy is the quantitative aspect of reality, and consciousness is the qualitative aspect of reality. Energy, I repeat, is the quantitative aspect of reality, and consciousness is the qualitative aspect. I see both these aspects, qualitative as well as quantitative, in everything. Vedatri Maharishi was true to this assertion. You may talk of a stone, still there is consciousness in it. There is energy in it. You see, when you talk of a mass is convertible to energy. There is energy. Even in stone, you can talk of energy in it because it has come from the primordial space, because it is charged with energy and consciousness. So this microphone has that energy and consciousness. Even a piece of stone, the wire has got energy and consciousness. But the difference is the degree of consciousness varies from entity to entity. How high is your consciousness? We cannot have the consciousness that Vedatri Maharishi had. There's a higher level of consciousness. So we do have consciousness, but our consciousness differs to the extent that we have grasp of that source. So that is the second point I wanted to make. Now in the morning, Professor Madhavan was speaking about gravity, space, gravity and consciousness. I see a unification in all the three. What to talk of gravity when there is no space? Can there be a talk of gravity without space? Can there be a talk of consciousness without space? So, can there be a talk of, you see, the model you see. As a human being, as a system, my hand is a hand only in relation to my body. Cut off my hand, put it there. Will it be a hand? Will it be functional? It will not be functional. So is the case with gravity and consciousness. There can be no talk of consciousness. There can be no talk of gravity if there is no space. So that's why space is the primordial thing, and I see a unity in difference. There is difference. Gravity, consciousness, they seem different, but they are one and the same with that primordial space. Because any talk of gravity will be meaningless without reference to space. So that's, I see a unity in difference. The another sharp distinction, and this is the point I request all to be attentive, and because this is the point which made me probably Professor Ramarajan sir to call me here maybe. Now we see, in the Vedantic model, we see space is charged with energy and consciousness. Okay? I repeat, space is charged with energy and consciousness. Now, this primordial energy that has come down here, and we see that energy in different forms. The different forms of energy, can we talk of these energies as different from the primordial energy? No. They are the manifested forms of that energy that we saw in the primordial space, and it's still going on. It is a continuous process. Okay. Now, from Einstein's equation, there is an energy-mass conversion. Mass can be converted to energy. Energy can be converted to mass. E is equal to mc square. Now see, where I found the energy? We find the energy in the space, primordial space. If we have a linkage between energy and mass, now if we can think of, as I say you, there can be no talk of energy without space. There can be no talk of energy without space. Now that energy is in space, the primordial space may be. Now if we can revise, if we can formulate a mathematical equation connecting space and energy, then would be a revolution in the Vedantic model. Why I say so? Because already we have an equation between energy and mass, already there is an equation between energy and mass which Einstein has given us. Now, if we can divide the mathematical equation between space and energy, now with energy at the center, we can relate space with the mass. The mass that we are having is nothing but that primordial space. So that's the point. And the example that we discussed, Professor Das discussed, the balloon example. It was given by Jiddu Krishnamurti, and I also learned that example from him when he was giving a lecture on Jiddu Krishnamurti, and this is the example from Jiddu Krishnamurti. You see the balloon, once it is busted, it has become the space. This is also space. The microphone in which I am speaking is space. Myself, yourself, everything out there, it is just a covering, the layer that is engrossing us. Otherwise, we are a part and parcel of that space. We can't be nothing other than the space. So, I'm coming back to my point. If we can formulate an equation connecting space and energy, because there can be no talk of energy without space. If at all we can devise, it's a task for the scientists, because we belong to the philosophy department. I don't think we don't have this model. Now it is a challenge for the scientists. If at all they can find out an equation, devise an equation between space and energy. Now, since we